Alright guys, so the long-awaited Hogwarts Legacy released recently, and today I want to really get into it, talk about the game. To start off the video, I have to say that I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan. I don't hate it, I don't love it, it's just fine. I've seen the movies in parts, out of order, here and there. I'm familiar with how it works, the world, the characters a little bit. Haven't touched the books, but I've dabbled in it enough to recognize some places here and there. I think that's just an important thing to put as a disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but let's get started. After the character creator, you're thrown straight into the world of Harry Potter as your character is whisked off to Hogwarts as a 5th year. The game starts strong with the high action opening with this dragon attack and a flying carriage, teleporting you to some mysterious ruins and entering an ancient vault. Unfortunately, as the in-game magic continues to grow, your enjoyment of the game does the exact opposite. At my current playtime of around 8 hours, the opening sequence is still the most interesting and engaging thing to happen. The story, if that's what you choose to call it at all, so far mainly consists of learning spells and doing favors for those around the world. This leaves the game to feel like a glorified tutorial still 8 hours into the runtime. I understand the type of game that it is, being an open world RPG, and it means a long runtime, but I can't help but feel that 8 hours in, I should know more. The balance to an open world RPG game is keeping the player intrigued with smaller stories throughout the side quests and world activities, while the player is driven forward in the main quest. Except in this game, I feel like neither is happening. Remember in middle school when they taught you how important when, where, why, who, and how is to a story, and the integral parts of character development, all that good stuff? Well, this game completely misses that. Now, I'm not saying it can't evolve and expand and involve those concepts later on. I'm sure it does, as the game's 30 to 70 hours long. But 8 hours in, I should have a concept of ideas for the story. If I compare this to another open world RPG game, the same type of game, for example, one of the more recent Assassin's Creed games, both are open world RPG games. Within the first 8 hours, I would argue less than that of any of those Assassin's Creed games. I can tell you at least 2 central characters, what their goals are, why that's their goal, how they plan to do it, why it's important, the conflict that they're going to face pursuing that goal, and probably the most important one, have some interesting gameplay mechanics while learning all of that. This game fails to do all of that in the first 8 hours. Let me summarize for you everything I know about the story in the first 8 hours. Now, typically, I explore a lot. I do a lot of side missions. This 8 hours really is before a lot of the exploration and side quests that I did. So this is purely main story content. But let me summarize what I know so far. So, there's an old wizard man that was a 5th year. So are you. You can see magic like the Force, and there is an evil goblin. That is what I've gotten in 8 hours of gameplay. Now, yeah, there's your stupid teachers, and they have names, and they're teaching classes, and you're learning spells. But realistically, the story, what is unique here from any other lore or any other type of media associated with Harry Potter is that you're a 5th year, you can see the Force, or magic, sorry, and there's an evil goblin man. That's what I've learned. Give me any other game. Give me a game that's twice as long as this, I can tell you more in the first 8 hours. Again, I'm not saying the story does not progress and get better and evolve with all of these concepts and interesting character development and motivation and all that good stuff later on. I'm sure it does. But you need to captivate people in your first couple hours of gameplay. Yes, the opening is really strong. The first 20 minutes of game is good. It's all cutscene, but it's good. It kept me playing for those first 8 hours. But you have to constantly, I would argue within every hour, keep the person playing in some intriguing way. And it doesn't do that here, and I've played long games. I've completed Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It took me 111 hours to complete that game. I got through it. It's fucking stacking rocks for hours and hours and hours, but the combat and all of the systems and the story and the characters and the choices within the dialogue kept me involved for that entire 111 hours. Here they couldn't do it for 8. Now that that's out of the way, let me talk about the gameplay. What do you actually do when you play this game? To me, this is perhaps the most confusing part of the game. Conceptually, Magic Wand combat is probably one of the more complicated systems to adapt into gaming, as it not only has to look good and fluid and the animations have to be fun, but sound and play good as well. It's relatively easy to make punching someone feel impactful and powerful. The same cannot be said for shooting beams of color out of a stick. Look at Arkham Knight, look at all the Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, you got all the Assassin's Creed games, you have so many games where you're punching people or hitting people with melee weapons. Not a lot of third-person action games used ranged combat in a way to this level where it is your entire gameplay loop essentially. This is your only source of combat. So this has to work really well, and this is the one concept in the entire game that I personally would have had no idea what to do with. But it's good. This is the only good idea. This is the only good thing that works. This is the only fun part of the game. The combat feels quick yet powerful, and it has enough variation in the customization of spells to keep encounters different enough. Like many good third-person combat games, there's a counter button along with a roll for defense, as well as environmental attacks and ultimate moves to vary up the traditional wand combat. Now, seeing how much Hogwarts Legacy is an RPG game, your gear directly affects your gameplay. What you choose to equip will directly impact how much damage you take, as well as how much you output, as well as cosmetically, of course. This is your typical loop of doing side quests, opening chests throughout the world, doing open world activities, as well as progressing through the story, and slotting out better and worse items, as well as upgrading them through shopkeepers and stuff like that. The game also gives you the ability at launch to equip your visual gear pieces separate from the ones that affect your mechanical stats. This is something that a lot of RPG games, for some reason, either don't have done by launch or don't think of until post-launch, so you're stuck, like for example in Cyberpunk, looking like an idiot even though those gear has the best stats. There is a skill tree, it's fine, nothing special. I would say half of it is worth looking at, but it tends to be how skill trees go. You have your ability upgrades and like the cool stuff, and then a bunch of like brewing potions quicker and increasing your maximum health and all of that stuff that you'll need eventually if you're playing on higher difficulties or for repeat playthroughs with different types of playstyles, but all of the cool stuff is typically behind 2 of those 4 or 5 skill trees. Now it's time for the vocab word of the video, our central gameplay loop. I talk about this in practically every review I do, and if you don't know what it is, let me boil it down for you. So it's the core features of the game that are repeated throughout its entire runtime, relatively every hour or so, basically what you'll be actually doing in the game, what you will be playing with the controller putting in input to do. And this is where my problems really start with the game. So once you're given free control of your character in the world and you can do whatever you want, you'll start by going to class. This consists of running for 2 to 3 minutes to get to class, watching a cutscene, followed by a quick time event, then practicing the spell once or twice, and that's all. You're typically given then some errand to do for one of the main characters that consists of you running about 3 to 5 minutes, only to choose a few dialogue options once you get there, and then run all the way back, talk to him a bit more, and that's your quest. So at this point in this theoretical scenario, you've been playing for about 20 minutes, and the only solid part of the game, aka the combat, hasn't been used. But let's continue. From here, you can choose what to do. Side quests, which I highly recommend you don't do, as 95% of them are literal fetch quests. And I don't mean go somewhere and beat these guys up and get the thing and bring it back, and go run somewhere else and beat these guys up and bring it back, or capture these areas, or whatever you typically do in these types of games. I mean literal, go get me this item and then run it back over here. There's no enemies, there's no interesting dialogue, nothing. It's just go grab these things and bring them over here. Now again, like in the story section, I'm not saying the side quests don't get better later on, but from what I played, which I feel like is a sufficient amount of time for the game to evolve at least a little bit, they were incredibly boring. Now this is where things get a bit complicated aside from side quests. You have main quests, which are broken down into 3 categories. The main story missions, which are obviously the most interesting ones and the most intriguing with the most amount of combat. Then you have what I would call errands, which is what I talked about earlier, where a main character gives you something to do, something to go get, something to buy, to teach you some gameplay mechanic or a new spell or a new room or something like that. And you're just running from one place to another, talking to somebody, and then running back, talking to the quest giver, and just doing that over again. And then my favorite, assignments. These are just glorified gatekeeping challenges to ensure you don't progress through the story too quickly. These assignments are homework given to you by your professors that ask you to do something like make certain types of potions and use them in certain orders, or dodge enemy attacks, or go defeat this enemy type, or do things like that within the open world that's not a specific quest-given task to do. And they always gatekeep the main story. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you remember the game, just a Wii game called Anthem, right? Everyone gave the game shit because there was this one mission, like 90% of the way through the main story, that required you to like go grind, kill a bunch of enemies, right? And you had to just do that before you could progress any further in the main story, which I talked about in my review. I said it's a shitty mechanic, it's dumb, games shouldn't do that. right? Well, this game does the same thing with these assignments, and I haven't heard anybody say shit about it. What they do is they lock a spell or some sort of other learned mechanic behind this assignment, which again is dodging enemies or deflecting certain types of attacks back at enemies or defeating certain types of enemies, blah, 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 until you can complete the main quest. It might not even be something that you mechanically need. For example, the spell to pull. You need that for a main mission that you need to pull platforms on. That makes sense. I understand why you need that. But another example, the disarming spell, I don't know what the hell it's called, I'm not obsessed with Harry Potter, but you need that in order to do a main mission. Now, at no point in the main mission do you use the spell, do you have to use the spell, it's just a gate that the game puts you behind to force you to do these activities so that you don't fly through the main story just mission after mission after mission, which is fine if it was passive enough. If it was something that you could do in the background, that would be fine. But the problem is that the combat is so few and far between in this game that you're never going to passively do that shit. Unless you're playing on the hardest difficulty, you're not going to make all these fucking potions. You're not going to go around dodge rolling between enemies where you can just block and counter every single enemy. It just doesn't work passively and therefore pulls you out of your loop to go do some tedious stuff that you don't need to be doing. My problem with this game is the only intriguing part of any of it is the combat, and it's paced so poorly that in the first 8 hours of the game, I can confidently say aside from the final mission that I did, there were less than 10 enemy encounters. Now you can go run around and go explore the open world and just run into enemies in the Forbidden Forest, sure, but within the main story and the side missions that break off from the main story and all of those missions, there's less than 10 encounters, and each one of these counters lasts maybe 1 to 2 minutes. So, while the combat is fun and unique, it is spread so thinly that it's not worth playing. You get this high from combat that leaves you wanting more. And the question is, are you willing to run around and listen to cutscenes for over an hour just to get a taste of a tiny bit more combat? It would be one thing, like I said, the quests were good, had interesting subplot, some lore for the world, a moral dilemma of some sorts you got to choose between with these dialogue options, but that's not there. I'm not exaggerating when I say for main missions, I've had to run 1,500 meters there, 1,500 meters back, just to talk to somebody, for them to say that they have my back. So if you can't tell already, this is my main problem with the game. Much like Midnight Suns, the stuff that is enjoyable is too few and far between to bear sitting through the rest of the game. Now, while these are a lot of my primary problems, I do have some nitpicks with the game that I'm not going to bash it too hard for, but stuff that I want to address. So let me start out by saying this game heavily relies on, hey, look at that, right? If you haven't seen the movies, haven't read the books, don't give a shit about Harry Potter like me, like you're fine, you could live with or without it, a lot of the stuff you're not going to care about. I mean, the room of requirements, for example. I know what that is. I know that it's a room. I know, like, in one of the movies it catches on fire and they're, like, flying through it on their brooms and, like, they jump onto some dude on the broom and there's, like, a big fire beast or something, right? I vaguely know what it is, but I don't care enough to where I want to walk around and listen to somebody talk about the room for, like, 10 minutes just to tell me, like, hey, this is where you can craft stuff. I don't care that much. It's not that important, and it's just a lot of dick sucking of Harry Potter, right? Oh, they said the name Weasley. That's the guy from Fortnite, right? Like, that's the whole game. Now, if this game had done its own thing, I understand it's for the Harry Potter fans, right? People that like Harry Potter and are obsessed with Harry Potter, they're gonna like the game. That's fine. That's cool. But I'm looking at it from an objective standpoint of, is the game fucking good? If you've never heard of Harry Potter before, is this fun to play? And my answer is no. If you don't know what any of these spells means, don't know what these characters are, don't really care about the world, and you're just trying to dive into something new, there's not enough there foundationally for you to enjoy. Now, let's nitpick. 1. Performance. This game, I played it technically, if you count early release, 6 days after launch. Still had a lot of bugs, invisible quest givers, all types of texture bugs, people were just popping in and out, entire environmental features like smoke and fog just appearing, light disappearing and changing randomly. Stuff like that 6 days after launch should be patched out, especially after the game was delayed, okay? So that's number 1, okay? Number 2, $10 to play the game early, fuck you. Alright, that's number 2. That's just a gripe I have. There should not be pre-order bonuses or digital deluxe ultimate PlayStation 5 bonuses or AT&T bundles. That was an Avengers joke. I know there's not an AT&T bundle, but it's dumb. Just release one version of the game for $70 if you want to make it $70, whatever, and that's it. But that's fine. My other thing, and this is my big nitpick, the map and the UI in this game is fucking dog shit. And I don't mean the actual castle map, the map of Harry Potter, the world of Harry Potter. That's the better word for it. It's fine, that's cool, right? The castle's cool, it looks good, all of that good stuff. But the actual map, now of course I don't have that recorded because I was too focused trying to not fall asleep while I was playing the game. The map gives you an exterior view of Hogwarts, right? And when you're trying to figure out where the fuck you have to go, or where this chest is, or how to do this puzzle, or this main quest, right? You can't do it because it's an exterior view. I don't know what level I'm on and what level I need to be on. So unless you have like a map of this printed out in your room on your wall and you just know the whole castle, then you can't navigate. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I was talking about having to run constantly. You're constantly running around all over the place. Yes, there are fast travel points, but if you're trying to fast travel within Hogwarts, again, the map is from the outside of the castle. You can't see, if you need to go to Defense Against the Dark Arts class, you can't see unless you go through and read the name of every single waypoint on the entire map. Oh, this is the one that says Defense Against the Dark Arts fast travel. That's the one I have to use. But if you're not doing a class, it's not that simple. If you're doing a side quest, it doesn't say side quest 1, 2, 3 fast travel point. I fast travel 4 floors above where I'm supposed to be, and it would have just been quicker for me to just run there. So that's what I started doing. I just started running everywhere. There was no point, if it was inside the castle, of fast traveling, because I ended up further away than I was initially. So that's my nitpick with that. The UI is so goddamn slow. I open the menu and it just opens me in gear. If I want to get all the way over to map, I gotta RB. It's slow as shit. It takes so long to open. It has a stupid animation of the book opening and closing. It takes forever. And it's just so cluttered. There's like a collection menu to where whenever you do things, you have to go into the collection and claim things from the collection and then go into your gear to see what you got. And it's not separated well. The quest tab's good. That one's all right. The skill tree tab, that one's good. The gear is fine, but the map and the collections page are shit. This is my other one, doors. Now, I'm on Series X. I don't know how this works on PC, but on Series X and PS5, you get this little loading symbol at some doors, and you can just go. On Series S, and, well, I guess that's it. I don't know how PC works again. You have to hold X, and like it black screens you, and then you load into the other side of the door. That's absolutely fucking absurd, alright? No, we're not doing that. I don't care if you cut the map in half. The map's huge, doesn't need to be this big. There's no reason for that. Now, I can't wait for when this comes out in like April on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and when it comes out in like July on Switch, you're gonna have to like switch IP addresses to go through a fucking door. So again, nothing that impacts me, but if I was playing this on not a Series X, essentially, if I was playing this on the Series S, or if this is a thing on PC, playing on lower end PCs, if I had to deal with this, that 8 hours of playtime would have been cut down to probably 3. Now, my final nitpick before I wrap things up. They have customization for your glasses, your hat, your robes, your underneath clothes. There's another one that I can't remember, and your wand. All of those things have both, again, cosmetic, obviously, and gameplay mechanic implications. Cool. Except for the fucking wand. Why would your, like, attack weapon, the coolest thing in the whole game, the main, like, lore, the main item, it's like a lightsaber for Harry Potter. Why would that not have stats on it? It doesn't need to have, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you don't want to do that. Give it elemental effects so that whenever you do your base attack, it does, like, lightning, and sometimes it'll do poison, sometimes it'll do ice. Like, this is such a basic mechanic. Why would you not, the coolest thing, why would you not give it something, a property, a reason to change it? Now, let me wrap up. I'm gonna go through the things that I like and the things that I don't like, just to make it clear so that when I give this game a score, I don't get like airstriked at my house. Okay, so the things that I like, it looks good. The character customizer is actually, not bad. It's not good, like it's not anything insane, but it's not bad. The opening is really strong. Where I ended was decently strong, right? If the game continued from hour 8 to 30, let's say, on the level of quality for main mission that I ended on, for every single mission at that consistency and at a quicker rate, the game could be decent. The problem is, I don't care at what consistency it progresses at and how much better it gets. If your first 8 hours sucks, then it sucks, right? If you go see a movie, if you saw Endgame, it's 3 hours long. If the first 2 hours and 45 minutes of that is dog shit, and then Captain America picks up the hammer in the last 15 minutes of the movie still sucked. I don't care if it had one cool moment, right? This is a game with a really cool opening and really unique combat that actually works within the Harry Potter lore, and nothing else. The world feels empty as hell. And those are all my positives. I'm already skipping on to the negatives. You see my problem with this game? Strip away everything, okay? I have an hour and 24 minutes of this game recorded. I could just sit here and play you an hour and 24 minutes of the game, not in order, just recorded. This is the, third clip with combat in it? That's 6 minutes if they're the entire length of the clip, which I know they're not. 6 minutes of combat in an hour and 20 minutes of recording. That's a problem. Your game has to keep me interested from point A to point B. It's fine your game is long, that's cool, but if you're going to make it that long, you have to have some sort of interesting feature. The world is cool, yes, it's Harry Potter, but if the gameplay doesn't bring me from point A to point B in that world, I don't want to go see it. If the story isn't motivating me to get from point A to point B, I'm not going to ever see it. You get my problem here? The world feels lived in, but too much. It's too realistic. This is School Simulator. The side quests are something interesting. Assassin's Creed, for example. Assassin's Creed isn't the greatest fucking thing ever, but it's so close to this game and the style that it was made that I have to talk about it. There's a side quest where you teach some kid about the harsh truths of life, that her dad isn't coming home, right, when you shoot down a leaf. All I do is press LT and RT to shoot down a leaf. That is the entire gameplay loop of that side quest. It is a 4-second long gameplay section of side quests, and then just like a minute of dialogue. That's better than everything in this game. This game has absolutely no substance. The combat is like a mechanic that they designed last. It's so good and so much better than everything else in the game. Oh my god, I'm gonna explode making this video. So a lot of the scores for this game are 9s and 10s out of 10s. I'm gonna tell you now, I'm absolutely nowhere near that. We'll try it a bit more if you guys say this game is super good and at like hour 10 it gets just absolutely insane. It's the most fun you've ever had, right? But if this game doesn't get good, I've read a lot of the reviews, not from the big companies, not from IGN and Game Rant and all of those, but independent reviews where people are saying they're having fun just exploring for 20 hours. That's cool. That's great if you like Harry Potter so much that you can just run around and like look at stuff for 20 hours, right? But I'm here to play a game, right? I need mechanics that are unique and interesting, and there's only one of those in the whole game, and it's just so spread out. And I know I've said that like 9 times now, and I just screamed about it, but it's true. This combat is so hard to do on paper, but they did it, and like props to them for doing it, but everything else sucks, alright? So for my final score for this game, what am I gonna give it? I don't know. I've been debating since like hour 6 what to give this game, because I literally fell asleep in a cutscene. Like, that's how bad it is. Okay, I'm done ranting. Let me give it a score. So I have to look at games that I've reviewed, right? I have to look at the really good ones, like Callisto Protocol, whatever I gave that, 9 or a 10, Midnight Suns, whatever I gave that, Saints Row, I want to say gave like a 3 or a 4, and compare this to those. Is this more fun? Is this better than Saints Row? Is this better than Midnight Suns? Is this better than the Callisto Protocol? I'm just picking those because those are the most recent things I've reviewed, right? And I don't know. Honestly, it's 5 is average, 4 is below average, this is below average. I would say this is worse than below average, right? An average game, I can have one fun session with. And one final thing let me address. I played this entire game talking to other people while I was playing it who were also playing it. If I would have been playing this game by myself, I maybe would have played it for 3 hours. I just can't. This game isn't for me, right? If you're a Harry Potter fan, fantastic. But this is a 3 out of 10. It's worse than below average. This is bad. I am frustrated at the amount of money I paid for this. I think that it's not a 9 or a 10. I don't understand how people are getting these numbers. Again, this is just my opinion. Like, my throat hurts how much I've been screaming about this game now. It's not important, right? It's just a stupid game. But you let me know what you think of this game down in the comments below. I know you're gonna disagree. I know everybody watching this right now thinks this is a 9 out of 10. It's the greatest thing ever made. But I personally, this just ain't it, Chief. But hope you guys enjoyed this video or enjoyed telling me to jump off a bridge in the comments, down in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully, what's next? Jedi Survivor? Hopefully Jedi Survivor is better than this. But that's all I got.